on this recording saying this was a commission? Because I know you did the first time. So you get to Buckingham Palace. That's all I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, the Buckingham Palace thing.
And you then also they had that relationship of whose work is it under commission, and then the shared piece, and
so
how you've come on to understand that it still can be yours.
Yes, okay.
So you've got some.
I've got some stuff to talk about.
And St Petersburg, so you get to travel a bit.
Yes, I can travel a bit. So I should carry on. Yeah. So self-portraits, other people's spaces, objects. Somehow finding a relationship for me to respond to whatever it is in as simple a way as possible. It's about what drives me to do anything, the creative process. That's the really important thing. It doesn't really matter where I am, but wherever I am, there's a little trigger and a little story. So the Blue Bathroom, it is a lovely place. It's a lovely friend, lovely house, and that's the response to that. The black and white stories over there, my friend's house in Wembley, that was my trip to Paris, where we never made it. So we ended up in Wembley, and I call this one Texting God. It's my friend Teresa texting her boyfriend John, and who's not God, but because of there's the black and white reference to Marco, and Buddha here sitting on the sofa, and I've even snuck in a little sort of light at the end of the tunnel thing, life and death thing in the washing machine, because it is just a washing machine. But I felt this whole, and she's sort of sprouting wings. There's a childishness coming back in, I think, through confidence. It's like there's a certain point in perhaps any artistic life, or certainly in my life, where maybe from having Louisa, where I've stopped worrying about what it means to other people, and I just do it. And somebody earlier, I think it was you, said you actually like the paintings better now you've heard the story. And I don't mind that at all. I wonder what, maybe like this video, maybe this video helps people understand my work. And I think, pictures people might like them on their own anyway. And actually some people who've bought my work have said, I don't want to know anything else. And I thought, but there's a brilliant story behind it. They don't want to know. So I'm happy with either way. You can like it with or without the story. So then the commission came from seeing my work as studio work at Sea Whites. And it had come from me working in spaces, and I did have this little fantasy about building up from flats in Wembley to Petworth House to the Queen. And then out of the blue came this guy at Danny House, at this stately home in Hurstpere Point, who said he had a rather large house and would I like to paint it. So I went there, and here it is, and that's probably the best example of the kind of house it is. And it's a retirement home as a business. He lives in one wing of it. So this is his private drawing room, the white room. And so far I have done the bedroom, I've done the Great Hall, and I've done the white room, but he hasn't liked the white room. He hasn't seen that one, but I'm sure he wouldn't like it. And there is this question then, this is what I was talking about in the first talk, about the reason for my doing things, and then the reason for other people wanting the work. And if they do, and initially I have found that by purely doing what I like, I have started selling work, which has just been an absolute bonus. It's been a real joy, and it's been quite surprising. The painting in the dark ones that I literally switched the lights off and painted, I then sold all the ones that were very, very quick, and I sold them all. And so there's real pleasant surprises, and thinking of selling work not just as a sort of affirmation of things, people liking what I do is always nice, but also as creating space to do new work. So that's very important for me. I'm not a thrower-awayer, and I'm not going to burn my work, and I have to store it and keep it. So if it goes, that's much better. I'm not precious about keeping it then, if it goes to a good home. So, but now I do have the dilemma. I think I'm getting to the end of my stage of wanting to continue with sort of commission work for the moment, for the time being, because I'm very aware now of what he likes, because he's already got 2, he's rejected 1, and I kind of just think I just want to finish and get him to like that, which I think is a danger point. There is a danger point there in a way. But like anything now, I just turn all these dilemmas, instead of it being a problem and instead of it paralysing me, I turn it into a creative thought process. So I have that feeling with the commission work, and then I was working on this painting. I went to a John Skinner weekend, which is at C. White Studio, and I did a series of 3, this being one of them. I think I'd already done this drawing, so I had already got a bit kind of frustrated with things and done some really quick drawings, much more vigorous. I was lying on the floor at one point, taking a different view, got another few drawings. So I'd pared things down. Actually, do you know what? I'm telling a fib. This was a drawing of the painting. I'm sure of that now. So there's a process. I will quite often do that. I will do paintings of paintings and drawings of paintings to study what is going on. So the dilemma then came of having somebody else's input, and would I appreciate it, would I like it? But what I then found was how useful it was to have somebody just say, you know, well, what do you like? What's going on? What are you going to do next? Kept me on my toes. And the thing I forgot to say earlier was what changed after that was my level of attention went whoosh. I suddenly found I could paint one picture all day long. And prior to that, I mean, absolutely, to that day, to that course, prior to that, I'd been like, oh, I'll do a bit here, oh, God, cup of tea, do this painting, oh, I don't like that, I'll do something completely different. And I just bounced around like a lunatic. After that course, I could stay with one painting for the whole day, from 10 till 5, or it was probably never more than 5 or 6 hours, but all day, not even stop for lunch. And I thought, I'm amazed. That was so unlike me to do that. So that's what I thank him for that, and this sort of his way of teaching really just pulled it out of me. But the paintings themselves, I didn't feel were necessarily mine. So in the end, I put them away and thought I'll come back to them. Carried on with this one, which he then rejected. The man who was commissioning me. Doesn't like it. Don't know quite. Yes, I'm doing it again for the video. It's all for self-publicity. Join in if you like, if you want to hear more. It's the same but different. And so this one is a sort of... this one I'm never quite sure about now, because I don't know whether I don't like it, he doesn't like it, anybody else likes it. I've almost sold it to somebody else, and I kind of wish they'd have just taken it away. It's become one of those things. But then looking back, because I now want to crack on with the White Room so that he finally gets his piece, I brought these ones out and had a look, and this one's finished itself. Maybe not to everybody's eyes, but to me, I think I'm happy with that now. And that is something which I really like. If you have got the space and the storage, there is that thing of leaving work and letting it finish itself. The black painting in the dark one also did that. It was going to be a lot more refined, and then I left it alone for a bit. And when I looked at it again, it was done. But I can't remember if there was anything else that was covered in the first talk.
I think something about the human anthropology.
Oh yeah, the art and anthropology. Yes. Oh, and the commission idea. Yes, the two of those things. So my obsession with the space, the object, and the people. I did want to sort of reiterate my connection with things. For two things. Firstly, my degree was in social anthropology, so taking something about the way I observe other people's spaces, and I interpret it visually. And I remember in my training there being this thing, I think it's called participant observation. And you could be, by being a participant observer as an anthropologist, you enter that community and you watch them, and you're either clandestine in that they don't know that you're even doing it, which was a bit of an ambiguous role, or you were quite sort of obvious, but then you're in danger of, they call it in the old days, going native. If you went too far into the community, you could then no longer be an observer. And I remember being fascinated by that role, and I didn't sort of think of it as a creative role, but I think it is. It's like, well, what are you doing? And there's a lot of artists now working with cultures and societies and social things. So I happen to have chosen the the grander side of life. I'm not in the streets, but why not? Somebody's got to study the big houses, and that was part of my sort of fantasy dream originally, was that I would start with people's houses and eventually do Petworth, be invited by the Queen to go and work in her house, and remarkably I've sort of got there much quicker than I thought to this end of life of houses, and from this current work, I've also been invited to work at the house that Turner built and designed in Twickenham, so that's coming up again, and that goes back to the connection with Petworth, because Turner painted at Petworth. And then the other thing that I mentioned earlier was my own background in being of Russian heritage, and my father being a refugee, and having to leave everything. So coming from a very grand background, in fact we've got photographs of sitting rooms, apartments looking very much like this in St Petersburg, and nothing left. And then my father collected throughout his life sort of just hordes of stones and objects and souvenirs and things like this, which I then grew up with. So I'm sure there's something of that I've inherited, this connection to objects and the stories, and this, I think, nostalgia for my birthright. That somehow it should have been me. I should be there.
You are there.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about
mix my paints, please.
Mix of people being placed in different places, and moving from place to place, and the kind of what's left over, the human remain, what the energy left by people in spaces,
and historical houses, and people, whether people like National Trust houses or not, and I happen to love them. It never crossed my mind when I took students there this year. It never even crossed my mind that people wouldn't like them, because they're dead spaces. And I just thought, I hadn't even thought of it. I just found them absolutely compelling and fascinating. Never minded the fact that they're not really lived in or alive anymore. But because to me they're still very much
houses
alive.
always have their echoes.
They do feel very alive.
But they're more alive the way you draw from your different perspectives, I think.
Perhaps that's it, yeah, because I am in it, and I think that's the other thing, there's never, hardly ever any people in there, but there is, because there's always me. There is always me,
movement.
And that is something that's very important. It's my relationship to the space. It's not, I think, it's not a view. It's not looking through the keyhole. It's not this distance view. I am in there, and in fact in the bedroom, when I was doing the bedroom, I would lie on the bed quite a lot, and just sort of nod off and catch myself dribbling on the duvet. But it's like I am actually in there, and I love it. I love being in these spaces.
Because that is the trace of you, isn't it?
Yes, and there's very often, in fact not in these ones, but in quite a lot of mine, there'll be there will be elements of me. There'll be my cup or my shoes, or there's an object that I've not deliberately placed there, but I've deliberately painted it in, because it was there, and it shows that I was there. But I think what I'm doing in these is it still is me. This sounds so obvious, but I think it's not that obvious. It is me, because I'm the one who painted it. I don't know. I've selected it because it's not a photographic painting. It's not everything. So I've selected to put those in, to put the Dennis the Menace in, and to pull out the pattern of the carpet and to see the grid here. I've selected all of that out of the chaos that was that room. I mean, there was so much in that room. I bet that's the other reason why I loved it. And here as well. I've selected to put things in, and that's the joy of being the artist, the creator of it. It's like you're watching everything. But that's why, going back to anthropology, I never really believed in anthropology, because I thought, how can you can't fully immerse yourself in the culture and be one of those people, and you can't